Good morning, friends. I hope you're doing really well. This is Tracy Brown, and my team and I provide non-diet nutrition counseling for people who want to make peace with food and body in I'll use the word trauma-informed way, but essentially want to help you feel relatively safe enough in your system for all this work to stick. And that's our philosophy. So in this video series, we're going to do at least 2 videos, maybe more this week, around the beauty of the mundane, of the excitement, and all these words are, I know oxymoronical, that's not a word, but there is some great excitement in the potential of the grind. And so what I mean by that is everybody who comes to, restricting and binging and over-exercising and constantly being sympathetic, kind of being numbed out a lot, avoidance of my feelings with fight, flight, freeze, or please, avoidance of people, all the things. We know that these are faux windows, so not real safety strategies to deal with a lot of that unprocessed, dysregulated, disorganized stuff from the past, fear of the future, whatever's happening. And what I find is that, most people start this process and it's really exciting at the beginning, right? Like who doesn't want to stop dieting and stop binging and all those things? And we start to do it just out of a little bit of like exhaustion of what isn't working and maybe borrowing other people's hope and faith and reading all the books and the podcasts and stuff like that. A whole new world opens up. But it is a new paradigm. It's a paradigm of tending, of being a compassionate witness to your needs. And obviously that's opposite of diet culture, because diet culture teaches, well, your satisfaction doesn't matter, your needs don't really matter. Eating less as much as you can to the point of, obviously you don't want to black out, but like less is better. If you're going to eat that food, eat less of it and then make up for another day. It's all about, restriction, deprivation, punishment, earning love, pride, it just goes on and on and on. So we know there's no good fruit there. There's no safety. There's no growing character. None of that. All right. Because we know that we can pursue health through health behaviors and, authentic, relatively safe enough relationships. That's the medicine. And so going back to this whole the beauty of the grind, what that looks like a lot is kind of replacing what got either stolen from diet culture or what never got installed. And what that means is caretaking. And when we're really young, we learn by watching people take care of others and themselves how to do it. There's some osmosis that happens here, or there's some teaching that goes on by example, and there's some teaching that goes on by getting you involved in the care process. So cooking, shopping, planning ahead, sitting down long enough to get your needs met. It doesn't have to be fancy food or anything like that, but just reliable, consistent eating done in a positive way teaches you how to be a normal eater. And almost everybody who works with me, either they had a small period of time where that happened and then they lose it because of an event, going on a diet, whatever happened that got people disembodied, or they never had it in the first place. I've worked with people who were put on a food restricted routine very young, in infancy, toddlerhood, so they never really had a chance to learn how to eat normatively. And they didn't have any models for that. So sometimes what we're doing is installing those things, which is why it's so hard and yet so imperative to do the boring stuff, which is set aside time every day for, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. However that looks for you, whatever is resonating with your body the most. Have a set day where you get your groceries. Have a day where, again, you don't need to meal prep, for your whole week in one day, but have some idea of like, cooking's probably going to happen this day, this day, this day. and make enough food where there's leftovers for that for lunch or another meal, and have your frozen foods and have your eating out. And I know all this looks very different depending on the person, your budget, your access. I understand all that. And I know none of that sounds very exciting, but actually those activities done with, instead of, oh, my needs are a burden and it's too much, it's, wow, I get to. These activities rebuild or build something that's never been there, a neurobiology and a neural pathways for my needs get met. So physiologically, you feel the difference of eating from hunger and fullness and feeling satisfied on a consistent basis. You have that lived experience now. And you're also repairing some of these attachment ruptures of your needs not mattering, you're not being attuned to, being abandoned, being rejected. We're fixing some of that through the actions of being a tender, Tender, tending to your needs. You're teaching your insides that, oh, there's a competent adult here who cares and sees that my needs matter. And there's a lot of coming home that gets to happen with all that. So that's my video for this morning, just remembering the power of this. And again, when people start doing this, it's really great for the first month or two, right? And then it starts to feel like, oh, the bottleneck is bubbling up and over of all the emotions that are underneath all that restriction and binging and dissociation and fight or flight, performative living, living off. When I say performative living, this high sympathetic activation where you kind of live off your own adrenaline and cortisol and coffee and people pleasing and hustling and all the things. When you're not doing that anymore, it's going to feel a little bit like a death. And that's understandable, that it feels like the things, all that running and all that checking out that you needed to do to not feel overwhelmed. No, the realness is there now. And it doesn't, and that's where the challenge comes in, is you're doing these, I would say, tending things, these competent eating things, and it gets a little harder for a small period of time. And I wouldn't say it's a messy middle, but you're approaching a new stage where it seems like it would feel better to go back and restrict or binge or numb out and all that. But the reality is, we're starting to feel the hurt. And the hurt, the shame, the rage, the fear. And we need to put some more resources in, which we're going to talk about in the next video. Is okay, so I'm on board with this whole thing you're talking about here, is to eat regularly, to make it important, because it is. And, plan that in and all the things. And now it's like, well, I'm doing that, and now I feel not so great. I feel worse before I feel better, which is true. And now I'm going to start to put in, okay, here's the other parts that your system needs. And again, all this stuff doesn't have to obviously cost a lot of money and take a lot of time, but it's just the day-to-day watering of that neurobiology that says it's relatively safe here now. You have resources now. When I say resources, I'm talking $1 million. I'm talking, I'm not in the default of always looking towards what could go wrong. I'm starting to look towards what is here right now that is relatively safe enough or good enough, and starting to build. There's a confirmation bias of everything being hard and terrible. Basically, when you've a trauma history, or you've had struggles with food and weight and body for a really long time, it's always the shoe's going to drop basically. And what we're trying to do is create another neural pathway. That's not necessarily true all the time. So thanks so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.